We're big, we're bad, we're back. I think I'm almost dressed in black at Studioszene 2024. We were here last year. It was a lot of fun. Did a couple of speaking engagements. Again, we're doing the same thing, teaching a masterclass and hanging out with lots of lovely people. So stay tuned for day one of Studioszene 2024 here in very, very beautiful Hamburg. Walk this way. I see Shure. I think Shure has coffee. Acoustics. Nice. I'm trying out one of these, I'm doing a demo of them. First impression is huge, huge show, really, really diverse in all kinds of genres. And I love the fact that the average age here is like 20 years younger than most of the other shows we go to. That makes me feel really happy because we're trying to bring as many people into our industry as possible. This is awesome. So we're here at Yamaha /Steinberg, which is one company.
Oh yeah, actually.
Yeah. When did Yamaha?
Did you know that?
No, I did.
Yes, you did.
Many times, yeah. I've worked with both Yamaha and Steinberg separately and together.
But it's actually not as known as it should be, actually, right? So there's lots of cooperations that we do, and that's why we're showcasing here together. It's been more than 15 years now, actually.
Yeah. What I'm excited about and interested in talking about is Yamaha. Well, look. You got a Pacifica over there with the Rupert Neve pickups. I actually know that guitar really well, reviewed it, love it, own one of them. Great, great guitar, by the way. Shout out for that. Yamaha, as I'm sure you're all very aware, there's probably nothing in this world that Yamaha don't make. Whether it be a speedboat, a motorcycle,
it's not much,
a car.
Actually, yes.
Yeah, maybe they even build houses. Probably in Japan they do. The point is like, we often forget, especially in a US-centric market, to be honest, that they make interfaces as well. Mm-hmm. So when you tell me about this is kind of, well, tell me, it's the AG08. It's the 08, an interface, but it's built for podcasting as well.
So the AG series in general has been around for some time now.
Yep.
And this is a pretty new flagship model, actually. So it
looks really cool.
Basically, it's an 8-channel audio interface, but it has a mixer layout, which the AG series usually had, actually. So not really like the box or the rack type thing, but desktop and mixer interface. And this has added some streaming functionality, actually, which is really dedicated to streaming. Okay. In short, it's a mixture of audio interface and streaming device, right?
Yeah.
So you can either use it as an 8-channel audio interface, you can even use it as an 8-channel analog mixer if you want to. It has a focus on a podcast production, for example. So
I've noticed this with a lot of Japanese companies. Yamaha, obviously, they're not giving up on the idea of things being tactile, of actually having faders and knobs, and rather than everything moving to an LCD screen. You know,
which is essentially a feature for streamers, right? Because they rather have their real controls in time.
I think for a lot of engineers as well. I think we like to be able to reach over and do this rather than scrolling through drop-down menus and It looks really cool. I love it. I do like the Yamaha white theme here. So these are the new
these are
HS.
The HS, the smallest ones. We added 3 and 4 inch to the family actually pretty recently. Just to have a more accessible version of the studio monitors.
What are these a pair?
They are the price of a single HS5, for example.
Okay.
So they are between 170 up to 250 euros a pair. They come either white or black, and they all have, of course, the iconic white cone.
They're powered?
One powered, one passive.
So the right-hand side's powered, and it's then running speaker cable over here to the other side.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, Very nice. Is to approach this kind of limited space mobile production market, kind of, right?
Are they powered up? Can I hear them?
Oh yeah, you can hear them
wanna hear
actually. Oh yeah. So this would be a...
Cool. They look great. I've always loved Yamaha's logo, to be honest. Isn't that just like the best
Tuning
logo?
Fox.
Yeah, I love the fact that it's that, and so you can get on a Yamaha motorcycle and it still has 3 tuning forks.
Yeah, it has actually. There's just a slight difference. So they touch the outer circle with motors and they don't with music.
Ah, nice. So microphones.
This is the new dynamic microphones. There's also a white one available. So this is what I'm showcasing here.
Is it a super or hypercardioid?
This is a super cardioid, yes, and there is also a cardioid version out there. So basically, we just recently launched these 2 models. They are actually pretty cool. They're an interesting alternative, at least, to all that's been around for some years now. So
yeah.
I think great haptics, great finish. So.
Very cool. And then the condenser over there.
Yes. There's one condenser version also available in white and black. So this is how they want to approach the streamers, of course, to fit any environment. Yeah. So it's not only about studio, because we usually like it black, right? So
sure.
Or I also tend to have stuff, I don't know, black until I find something darker or something.
Sure, I hear you. Lots of lovely toys. I think these are the ones that I have already. Yeah, these are the LCD-Xs, and these are the ones I use every single day. Also, Eric has them, and everybody who works with us, we all have the same headphones. I've found over the years it's best once you find a pair of headphones that you love and you've got a team of people that you all share the same headphones. Then you all hear the same things. So this has got the low end that I want, but it's not overly pronounced, it's accurate amount of low end. I find that most headphones tend to be a little scoopy sounding. Not all, but people like listening to headphones and they want sort of an exaggerated low end and a hyped high end. I find the Audezes, the LCD-Xs to be very, very true sounding and very natural, and I trust them. Now the Manny ones here, I've got a little bit more oomph to my thing. Let's have a quick listen. Just a tiny bit more down there. And, Manny is an incredible mixer, one of the best mixers in the world, and obviously mixes a lot more pop, R&B kind of stuff, a lot more kind of chart-orientated. That's not to say that he can't mix anything. Of course he can mix anything. He's a world-class mixer. So I imagine he wants that little extra oomph. And that's what I'm hearing. That's it's not the only major difference, but that's the biggest difference I hear. It's the tiniest bit more announced, I should say, low end, just a little bit more. Kind of a bit more enjoyable to listen to, but this is what I'm used to. I'm used to the LCD-Xs. Doesn't have the underneath that those do, but I know this. And if I was to put on a track that I knew, I could do really, really well with these. Love LCD-Xs, superb headphones. So no StudioSofa visit would be complete without Mr. Catchy. So we're going to have a go at Mr. Catchy. Okay, line it up. Yay! Mr. Catchy! Jens, how the devil are you? You got a steer?
Good to see you.
Good?
Yeah, how are you doing?
Good, aber sehr beschäftigt, very. But that's why we're here, isn't it?
Right.
To be busy.
That's our job.
To be busy and run around and have
Absolutely.
fun. So what do you have? What do you have for us?
We do have for you today a world premiere, which is Accent Digital PSM. That's our first digital in-ear monitoring system.
Nice.
So that's the dual and that's the quad.
Yep.
It's Accent Digital, the wireless system, and PSM 1000, the in-ear monitoring system. If you combine those, then you have a pretty good idea of what this system is about. So it combines the best of both worlds, but with a little bit on top, of course. We wouldn't be sure if we wouldn't put something on top, which is actually always related to the market. We listen to the market, we know what they want, and that's what we offer here.
So you were saying earlier that these can be also used with an analog system as well. So the legacy products.
Correct. Yeah. So, and that's the beauty about this one. It's also a WMAS system, so you can use it in WMAS mode, which is a wideband mode. But it's not only a WMAS system. You can have those different modes, and one of them is the analog mode. You get the latency a little bit down, but the good thing is that you can use the current PSM 1000 receivers, which means if you want to update your inventory, you don't need to throw away these old.
So for the big rental companies that have racks of these kinds of things, they can upgrade without having to buy everything again.
Correct.
Yeah. Good.
Correct.
That's smart.
Yeah, I think so as well. And again, it's also about the rechargeable battery that we talked before. It's the same as in the Accent Digital system, which means same chargers, no additional battery form factor, which nobody wants.
Sure.
But it shows, that's one part where we show that it becomes part of the Accent Digital family. It's a franchise that we want to offer here and the complete ecosystem, and that's one part of it.
No, I appreciate that. It's a little bit like, when you used to buy your new upgradable iPhone, and every single time they sell you an iPhone, you have to buy a different charger.
Correct. That's different.
So it's
here.
nice to keep this. Yeah. Smart.
So what you can see here, and that's part of that show link functionality I told you about earlier, is that you can monitor the receiver and see what's going on there. You don't need to run to the artist to check anything. You can you have a quality meter here, which shows you the quality of the audio and the radio connection. You have the battery life. You can see if the headphones are connected or not, which is also something that sometimes happens. But what you can also do here is to change those parameters. You can change the volume. You can lock the volume, for example, stuff like that, which makes it really, really convenient for you as a monitoring engineer, and also for the artist as well, because you don't need to run on stage and interrupt to change something like that.
Great. So what do we have here? What are you clasping?
That's our relatively new Nexodine microphone.
Okay.
It's a dual diaphragm microphone, which gives it a lot of resistance against feedback and a lot of clarity.
Okay.
And we do have two versions of that actually, a super carded and a carded.
Yeah.
You can see it here, and it's also available as a wired mic.
Nice. So it's dual diaphragm, so giving you better rejection. So it's a dual diaphragm, giving you better rejection.
Yeah, rejection for feedback.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. And it's quite light, which is good for, long-term performances, jumping around on stage.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
When I'm doing my pirouettes and, and it's, what sort of rejection does it give? Is it hyper or supercardioid?
It's available in cardioid and supercardioid.
Nice. This is fun.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you since 2018 or 19?
19. September 19 at Metropolis in London.
That was fun. And you were launching that range of speakers, which Julian is going to show a photo of in a second.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's been 5 years already.
Has it really been that long? Wow. Well, we were at AES week before last. Yes, we're all over the place. And we got to hear these.
Yeah.
Look, it says new.
It says new, exactly.
Yeah.
Brand new.
Brand new.
Yeah.
So, I didn't see this though. I didn't see this head tracking.
Yeah, I can tell you a bit about it if you want.
Tell me about the head tracking.
So, you learned about the reference controller, you learned about the headphones, you learned about the headphone calibration, which is our first level of base calibration for a reference headphoning monitoring.
Yep.
The second level, I don't know if they spoke about it, is actually Oral ID. Oral ID is our technology that we're using to do HRTF.
Right.
So head-related transfer function, like personalized shape of your upper torso, of your ears, to better understand how you perceive sound. So that's what it's all about. And Oral ID is our technology doing this. So that's a little iPhone app that you use to capture yourself.
Yeah.
Or somebody else is capturing you, going very close to the ears.
Yeah.
We're calculating a 3D model out of your upper torso, and then we basically shoot 836 positions of sound around it. So it is a very
836 positions of sound.
836 positions. So
How
it's
long does that take?
Well, it takes a couple of hours in the computer. It's not a manual process, obviously.
Okay.
But we have very good people. No,
Don't move for 2 hours.
You don't have to do anything. We just take a video of you, and that would be it.
Wow.
Once your HRTF is finished or your Oral ID profile is finished, you ingest it into Oral ID software by logging into the Genelec account and just downloading it. Once this is done, we then basically patch audio from the renderer or from any sound source going into Oral ID software. And there the HRTF processing is taking place before it hits the headphones. The good thing is Oral ID speaks basically infinitive channels of immersive, going to up to 916. Being it Atmos, could be Aura 3D, it can be a Sony 360, it doesn't matter what format it is. And it actually renders from mono up to immersive audio for headphones with your personalized HRTF.
Nice.
That's the base technology behind it. And what you were just pointing out is actually the head tracker. Because when you mix immersive on headphones, head tracking is a very crucial piece of the whole puzzle. Because orientation, looking up and down and left and right, is very crucial for us to understand where is the sound location actually coming from. And the Oral ID head tracker, as you can see here now, is taking the webcam as an input. And some others might do it with a little sensor that can be sticked onto the headphone, but we're doing it with a webcam.
Nice.
It's basically face recognition. So when you move out of the window, you just cover your head. Sorry, and now it's me basically doing it, and then you see basically the arrow also checking my one.
Ha!
And when you listen to that mix with the head tracking on, you can clearly point out that the vocals should stay in the center, and you basically move around.
So if you watch my face, but now it's all kick drum.
Yeah.
The kick drum's in the middle.
Should be.
Oh, lost it. Come back. There we are.
And the best thing for kind of demonstrating...
It's a dance track, by the way.
It is, the best thing about monitoring or showing headphones is that it's actually silent for the rest.
Right.
That's something new.
They're great isolation, by the way, because it's fairly loud.
Yeah. They do 20 dB of isolation just by the design. That's why we've chosen also the closed back. Yeah. Because when you want to kind of get into that immersive field, also with HRTF, it's good to blend out basically outside noise. It's not noise cancelling, but it's pretty close to kind of get the outside bit out so you can focus better on the mix.
There's a big discussion going on at the moment inside our community where people are asking about, they're saying independent artists that they're mixing aren't asking for their mixes to be done in spatial. So they're like, so why should I invest in it? And I'm like, I totally understand. But the music that's being uploaded to iTunes in particular, which is still the dominant, obviously, place.
I know.
They have a feature where you get all your music just automatically done in spatial. And that's how most music is being done. So you have a choice, either educate your clients and say, hey, I can mix your music in immersive for you.
Make it correct, please.
Do it correctly, or you can just hit the button, they can hit the button and create it in spatial.
That's true.
And our independent artists are doing that because they get paid an extra 10% royalty rate to use it. Yeah. So please think about mixing immersive. Even if it's in binaural and using a system like this or whatever, you're going to be much better off doing it for them than you are going to be letting
I also run an immersive music studio where I've done 1,000 mixes so far.
You've done 1,000 mixes?
Yeah. So I know that business discussion that I have with the artists and also with people in the industry. But this extra 10% is something that is relevant. But I think what is even more relevant is we're creating the mixes now, but they will stay long. My grandkids might want to hear them in 50 years. Yeah. So if I don't choose the latest and greatest technology today, it will basically bypass me. You know, we can be all very happy that the Beatles have produced music in the late 60s with the gear they had. Today, we're enjoying it a lot. You know, despite the fact that the technology was a bit clunky at that time or difficult to use. So the mixes that we create today, they will stay for ages.
Yeah, as
with
long as
us.
they're done really well.
Exactly.
Which is better for us to do it than a plug-in
Absolutely.
that somebody's pressing a button on to automatically create it in Spatial.
Yeah. But the tools help a lot to do this.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, this is marvelous. Thanks very much. I really appreciate it. And obviously check out the AES one where Paul took us through this as well.
Yeah.
Eric, you rock.
Thank you very much.
Always good to see you.
Thank you.
Hey, how are you? Woohoo! Look at who he is. It's Olftastic. Mikael, tell us what's going on.
Yes, we have the UR22C interface. It's a 2-in, 2-out interface with onboard DSP.
So tell me about the onboard DSP. What does the DSP do?
It's a compressor, it's an EQ, and drive. So you can shape the sound, and then you have like a reverb. You have different reverbs, and also can manipulate them.
And you're saying a lot of streamers are getting this?
Yes.
What does it have that's good for streamers?
It has the loopback function. So you can use it to stream your DAW sound directly
back into it. Great idea.
Yes. So that's built in.
Yeah, and in typical German engineering, it has lots of additional things.
Yes, so you can use it also with a tablet.
Yep.
And it has external power input.
Great.
So you can use it with everything.
I always feel a little bit more secure when I have an external power supply anyway.
Yeah. Sure.
Especially when I'm watching the battery run out on my computer.
Yeah. It also works with a power bank, so you can do it like this. Yeah, it's really robust.
Yeah.
Metal building, so it's quite good.
Fantastic. And then what are these two units?
These are the
single input, double input?
That's it. Yeah, it's a new small range of audio interfaces. It has completely USB-C powered and has the same functionalities, but without the DSP.
Fantastic.
It has Yamaha
mic pre's.
Mic pre's. Yeah. So
great. Studioszene.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Recording Band podcast. I am your host, Benedikt Hein. We're here live at the Studioszene on the StudioSofa. And I'm here with my friend and co-host, Malcolm Owen Flood, of course. And we're joined by Warren Huart for the third time on this podcast. I'm super excited about it, to do this. We're live, hopefully, and you can also watch this or listen to this afterwards on the podcast.
Marvelous.
So, welcome, Warren. Thank you so much for being on the show again.
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
So the topic for today is going to be how do you stay creative while mixing? So how do you keep things fresh? How do you avoid doing the same things over and over again? What do you do to mix things up? So that's going to be our theme. And I know that you just moved to a different studio, swapped out everything basically, right?
Sure,
Well, I mean, not just, but it's been a while, but still.
Yep.
So I assume that has changed a lot for you probably, but it's not about the gear only. So I don't even know where to start with this, but tell us, how do you stay creative when you mix, and how do you avoid repeating yourself basically?
Well, your question when you first asked the first part of it, it's interesting because getting organized and having a system also gives you freedom.
Very true. I agree with that.
So it's like if you do, and this is where everybody's going to argue, and that's fine. Please argue down below about it. But I actually believe if you've come up with a system that you can get from A to B pretty quickly and get things sounding really, really good, you can then be really super creative. Now, that system could be all kinds of things. For a lot of traditional mixers, their template would have been the SSL. For somebody like Chris Algi, who has mixed stuff I've done, it is essentially his template. I think he said in an interview I did with him 7 years ago, one of our first interviews, he said, "This is my big template." Right. And people can take that as a negative, but that's a ton of acquired knowledge. So, knowing that this EQ, this compressor, and blah, blah, blah is going to give you a result that's going to get you 95% of the way there isn't necessarily a bad thing. Now, there's an argument for the opposite as well, and just as valid. The opposite as well of just pulling up faders and deciding what to do. And actually, at 4:30, we're going to go in and mix 2 or 3 songs, depending how much time we've got, in the stage next door. And I'm going to do just that. I'm going to do the absolutely, let's try not to use a plugin. If we do use a plugin, let's, why do we need it? Is it just high passing? Does it need a gentle bit of compression? Or should we rather be automating? So I'm going to sort of challenge people because I think, I'm sorry to be a bit of a tangent on your question.
It's perfect.
But I think with this sort of like, I'm sure you've all noticed, everybody here, you guys have noticed, like, it's gone nuts on plugins in the last 2 years, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's gone absolutely,
so, yeah.
It's gone insane. Now, everybody that's ever done music has got a plugin. Or a series of plugins, and
we're gonna head into Black Friday soon, which is gonna be a whole other level of madness.
And there's companies now that are selling like kits to build plugins to YouTubers, so they can build their own plugins and sell them and all this kind of stuff. Everybody's looking to market, and it's getting flooded with plugins. And the problem is, or the reality. Problem is a big strong word. The reality is like because there's so many plugins, we all feel we have to be using them. Because somebody brought out this new dynamic multiband distortion, octave divider, chorusing, flanging, blah, blah, limiting, saturating, clipping, so-and-so, with a reverb built in, and so you must get that. And I get it. We do test out a lot of these plugins and review them. But it is very overwhelming. And if you go and talk to a mastering engineer, for instance, you think they would be the one that would use dynamic and multiband compression most of all. They'll say, I'll use it every now and then as corrective. But now we're using these tools to mix. And so everything is getting smaller. It's just getting smaller. I get sent stuff all the time, and everything has just gone from being this big in the rough to being this big in the final thing, because everything has been corrected and perfected and limited and compressed and bleedy-blah to within an inch of its life. And unfortunately, it's just taken all of the energy and everything out of it. So there's an argument for 2 different ways of approaching it. I think whichever way you approach it, you should be listening to the tracks.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Pull them up on fader, do a static mix. Just do a static mix, especially when you're coming up and you're trying to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because having a template is great when you've been doing it for blah, 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 blah amount of years and you've done thousands and thousands of mixes. You could probably, or you will be able to create a template which will get you through most situations. And, people sell their templates and you can create a metal track in 20 minutes using their template, but you're going to sound like everybody else. So to answer your question directly, I think there's 2 very distinct ways of working, and you have to decide what is best for you, but probably most importantly, what is best for the song, what is best for the artist. If it is a case of, pulling something up which is very organic, very live, recorded, performance-based, you don't want to be feeding that into your smash and grab template that's going to make everything loud and punchy and crash, So the creativity is going to be sitting there doing volume automation, maybe messing with some panning, a bit of high passing. We've got a track today that we're going to use in there, which is very much like that. It's recorded live off the floor in one take. So when I come to mix that, it's going to be like, what should I be high passing? What should I be automating? What should I be letting the original musicians who performed together just not touch?
Right.
Because they were all listening to each other, like playing a little bit louder here, playing a bit quieter there, all of this kind of stuff, I should be leaving that as is.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing. But then there's going to be the other thing where somebody has recorded, like I said, like a metal song, something that's really loud and everything's competing with everything else to be heard. You're going to probably get a little bit more surgical in that, depending on how good the production was.
Yes, that's
it all comes down to that.
Yeah.
And listening.
Yeah. Because if the production was good, the person who recorded the drums, the person who maybe laid in some drum samples or whatever, it's modern metal, it's going to probably be predominantly drum samples, unfortunately. But in reality, if they've constructed a really powerful, aggressive drum sound that is not like full of low mids and yucky and dirt, but if they've done it, you should be able to pull it up on fader and go, okay, I just need to do a bit of this, bit of that. There's room for my bass guitar. Bring your bass guitar in. You want some attack on it, but you don't want anything over about 3K. You start thinking this way to build a track, to build something. So it's very, very different ways of working dependent on the song. And I've always believed this strongly. It's why I produce like a pro genre-wise is so diverse. Why, one week we'll do something with Christian, like, mixing modern metal. And then the next week we're talking about Fela Kuti and Afrobeats. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we'll do Dwayne Allman the week after that. You know what I mean? It's just, to me, it's like we need to embrace and understand all of these different ways of working. Because if you want a career in this industry, you've got to be able to do that. There's very, very few people that are genre specific and super rich. Yeah. No matter how much we want to pretend that, for every Serban Gurnier who's predominantly in pop, there's 1,000 other people that are making a living that are literally moving between spoken word and death metal and pop and country and everything,
One thing also that's important to mention is if someone who is in a genre that requires more in the mix and not just like a high pass here and there, which there are genres where you have to do more because it's not supposed to sound like the band in the jam space.
Sure.
And then those people should know that I think that it's okay to do more if the song calls for it. Like both are totally fine. Like that's the other thing.
So it's okay to mute.
Because
if you don't like something, just mute it and try it again.
Because I see the other end of the spectrum as well, where someone tries to do, let's say, modern metal or like some super polished, larger-than-life thing, and then they hear this totally correct and valid advice like you just gave, and then they think, oh, I'm just allowed to use one compressor and like do a little high passing, and then they're afraid to boost 10 dBs, although it would be the right call. Like all of that is completely correct.
Yeah, but here's a human predicament, isn't it? We live in an age where we just want a tool to fix something, and the reality is like there is no magic anything or whatever. But I think we're all looking for technical advice to solve a creative issue. This is why, people ask me about DAWs. Yeah, I use Pro Tools. It was like the best and only real DAW when I started in the mid-90s. So there you go. So I'm on Pro Tools. But there are people that use, especially obviously in Deutschland, there'll be a lot of Cubase users. Of course, Steinberg here is dominant. Wherever you are. The point is like everybody uses whatever DAW. It doesn't really matter. But what does matter is that you know it back to front. Mm-hmm. So that you're not being hindered by it. Like it's painful watching people like get the mouse and go.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't know the key command, learn it. It's no longer. It's a necessary part of our process. So learn the technical side, etc., to free yourself to be creative. Yeah. But don't rely on the technical side to solve a problem.
Your output is like phenomenal on a matter of social media, but also just catalog of work over the years as well, right? So I mean that's the sign of a creative person. But I'm always interested in how people get into that headspace. I guess writers tend to always have like their little writing nook. They go to the same place, they light the same candle, they have their same cup of coffee, and that gets them into like, all right, I'm in create mode kind of thing. And I'm wondering if you have anything similar, like almost a creative ritual that gets you in the Warren Hewart produce like a pro mode.
I grew up like a lot of typical kids, liking kind of the technical stuff, liking cars and planes and boats and whatever, liking the kind of bits and bobs of it. So there is a part of what we do, the technical element that I love.
Yep.
I do actually like editing drums and making it sound like I haven't edited them. If I'm going to do something, I'm obsessively going to do it. So if I'm just moving a kick, a snare, and a tom fill very slightly, I will go in there. So I do actually love the technical part. I love vocal comping. I know it's like, I love spending a long time listening, but then I also like when I am doing vocals, taking really amazing notes. So that when I come to comp, I know what I'm looking for. I style the thing I like. I go back to it the next day or later on the same day, whenever we're doing comping the vocals, and I go, oh, I know why I like that, or I was wrong, that doesn't work anymore, or whatever. And then it gives me a point to work from. So there is a bit of that kind of technical thing that plays into the creativity that I think is, something that we should all embrace. Here's a way of flipping your question around, because people always ask me or make sometimes negative comments about a genre or a song. So maybe I've just demonstrated how to use a compressor on maybe a very, very slick pop song. Mm-hmm. And somebody's like, I just can't believe that you would be able to work on this kind of music. How could you do it? And it's, whatever I work on, whether it is death metal, pop, punk, jazz, classical, whatever, I fall in love with it and I make it my own and I just put everything into it. To just answer your question, I just look for the positive in it. It's like when I'm teaching, if you're cutting a vocal, you're the singer, and you put your first take down, and the second, it's basically garbage. You didn't do a very good job.
It would be.
No, no, but let's just say it's your first take. You're nervous. You're in the studio. But on the second line of the second verse, you did this thing where you kind of go, and you breathe through the end of the note.
Right.
And it sounds awesome. I don't go, oh my God, dude, that was the worst vocal I've ever heard in my life. I don't say that. What I say is like, hey, we should listen to this. And then I play you this little piece and I go, see the way you breathe through the end of that? I want more of that. That was amazing. So immediately, I don't put you down. You don't feel crap. You've just been praised for something and you bring more of that into it. It's an attitude. If you want to talk about how to be creative, bring that attitude in everything that you do. If you're working on something and you're struggling, find something you love about it. Yeah. What is it? Why did you even want to work on that song in the first place? You know, what was it? Totally. I think another thing for me is like when I start a process, especially in production, I have a template, a musical vision in mind. So if you bring in a song and it's an acoustic vocal, but to me there's a Motown groove in there somewhere. Maybe you're just playing it, but I hear I will start modeling and moving it towards that, even if it morphs into something else. Right. Yeah. It doesn't matter. I have a raison d'etre. I will have a reason to do this. I want to, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's the thing to do. You don't just sit there and go. Now, when you're working at the highest level in any creative industry, not just music, you have to get the job done. Yeah. So how do you do that? For me, it's like finding that place. People send me music. Maybe the song's not very good, but there's vocal moments in it, or the song is really good, but the vocal's not right. The point is like, I find what I love about it, and it's very rare to get something that you can't find something into it to connect with, even if it's just the smallest of element. So what it really needs to be is you need to be a fan of music. You need to know your music. And I get it. When you're young and up and coming, you might just be the death metal guy. You might just be the pop guy. But go back, find out why the person that you love makes music, and you'll probably find that they grew up listening to something that you've never even heard of before. Yeah. You know, go back to the roots. Marvellous. How is everybody? You all doing marvellously well? Yes? The affirmative? Great. So I thought about this topic, how to improve your mixing skills. And there's lots of different things we could do. And we are going to do some of the more obvious things. But one of the things I have noticed, do you remember sort of how technology drove the music? Do you know what I mean? Like in 1978, we had the SSL 4000 came out. Wonderful. But the thing with the SSL 4000, it was like, suddenly everything was mixed through the SSL 4000. It had a certain sound. Some of my favorite records were made at that period of time. And, you know, I'm talking about the Steve Lillywhite, particularly the Hugh Padgham records, and all of that, you know, things like the Peter Gabriel solo records, XTC. They're still some of my favorite recordings ever made. Super creative, great songwriting, incredible musicianship. There was a sort of a period then where it was close enough to the Beatles so people still cared about writing songs. It was close enough to the Beatles in as far as the innovation. You know, people were trying out new things, new sounds, but the technology was coming together and you had 24 and 48 tracks available. So it's still sort of my favorite period. Now, I mention it because you remember the good old-fashioned DX7, yeah? Everybody remember the DX7? Do you remember how the electric piano sounded on the DX7? How did it sound? Bloody awful. But it was everywhere, wasn't it? Everywhere. I always make a joke about Doogie Howser. Remember the Doogie Howser theme tune was this kind of little plinky plonky. It sounds like a toy piano now. But you go back 4 or 5 years. Remember a show like Taxi? Remember that? Remember how that was just awesome music? Go back and listen to that. And you'll listen to like Fender Rhodes and Wurlitzers and all this stuff. My point is that the technology always drives the music we listen to. Now, you can take that to the nth degree and you can talk about how everything's auto-tuned and gridded and all that stuff. And I don't disagree. And we could spend the next hour and a half discussing that. But that's not really where I'm touching upon. We're talking about mixing. I think one of the things that's getting lost in mixing one of many things that's getting lost in mixing is this idea that the mix is also the production. So if you probably notice every time you watch a YouTube video or any kind of educational stuff, when's the last time you saw a video on actual production and miking and coaxing a great performance out of an artist or working on the song being great, which was all I grew up on. If you're from my generation, which a lot of you are, that was all we ever used to talk about. Now all we ever talk about now is just mixing, as though it's going to fix everything. Okay, so where am I leading with this conversation? I'm leading into it because there is a massive proliferation of plugins out there, and as you've probably noticed in the last couple of years, it's like 10x every year. Like every year I'm guilty, I've reviewed about 5,000 of the bleeding thing. I think we have 2,800 videos, and I'm sure half of them are reviews of gear. So that's great, and that's well and good. But there's become a sort of reliance on it, and we all, myself included, reach for those plugins to solve problems that maybe, almost definitely, aren't actually problems, that don't actually need to be solved. So we'll start with, if your followers have produced like a pro, you'll know probably both of these songs. This one is one, I feel very blessed. We went into Sunset Sound. The band's phenomenal. Blair Sinter on drums. Blair was Alanis's drummer for years after Taylor left. Taylor Hawkins, when he went to join the Foo Fighters, Blair was her drummer for, I don't know, a good 10 years. The bass player is my old bass player in one of my bands, John Button, who's now the Who's bass player, and a lovely, lovely fellow. And then the artist was a guy called Jonah Smith. Jonah Smith came forth in America's Got Talent, so a wonderful singer. It's a live recording, piano, vocals, bass and drums, all recorded live, like at the same time. And not as a boast, but a fact, it is actually the first take. We did do 3 or 4 or 5 more takes afterwards, I think like 4 takes, but all preferred the first one. Now, we had a demo of a piano vocal, and we played it back through the speakers, and the bass player and drummer, Blair and John, listened to it, charted it quickly, and then just went in and played instinctively what they thought would work. And it was one of those magical moments where it all did really, really work. Let's give it a listen.
I was lost, couldn't find my way home.
Can you hear me talking still? All the faders are at 0.
I was tired, my mind was
the stuff that's muted is bussing for reverbs. There's no reverbs on it at the moment. This is the dry recording of the band in the room. They're all hearing each other, they're all playing together. So the dynamics you hear are real dynamics.
I was blind, didn't know how far I could fall.
Good solo to piano. You hear his vocal bleeding in. Not too much drum bleed. A little bit. Now it's important to know that they were hearing exactly this. Maybe they obviously had an individual mix, so they may have wanted a bit more kick or a bit more snare. If it was the bass player, maybe they would have wanted to hear that. I'll shut up for a minute or two because I want you to listen and I want you to tell me what you would do to this mix.
I was sick, I felt that pain in my heart. I would lie
can't remember if it was a 58 or a 57. Either way, it was a Shure dynamic microphone.
I never thought that I would be caught by love so helplessly again.
The advantage that I would have got from a U47 would have been nothing compared with the isolation that I've gained from using a handheld. I mean, it was on a stand, but just a good old-fashioned dynamic. So quite often when people are asking me about, microphone choices, the first question always has to be, what's it for? And for so many of us now, we don't do live recording like it used to be. But there are a lot of people that if you have a studio space, that's one of your opportunities, to be able to bring artists in and record them live and film it. That's a big business model for a lot of people that follow us. They have like a space that they've designed, and people need content now. So dynamic microphones are your friends. Now, obviously there were some expensive microphones thrown at this here, but they would have been on the drums and all this kind of stuff. And the bass amp was isolated, so we didn't have bass bleed into it. So what did we get so far? We got low-end management over here. We got writing the vocal, which, is not surprising. There's only so much you can do as a human being. When you get to the section at the end of the song where he's like belting out, he's never going to be able to sing over the top of a drummer and a bass player and even his own piano, which is artificial anyway, because even at the beginning, we're only hearing it because we've got the vocal loud enough at that point. In that situation, that's the reality with vocals. They're going to need PAs when you go and see something live. In this situation, he'd never be able to perform it anyway. So that's a given. Writing the vocal, bass management, getting the low end. I also think judicious use of high passing. There's a lot of low end in there, because if you've got a little low rumble, it doesn't seem to mean anything. You've got little low rumble in 48 microphones. You can take your meters here at 0 dB and see this much low end energy. And it might not even be that audible because it is 20 hertz. People are saying, well, if it's not audible, it's not important. Yeah, it is, because it's just destroyed your dynamic range dramatically, because you're now filling up all of this low energy. And people say, I couldn't get my mix to be loud enough. Well, get rid of all the low end and suddenly, wow, it's louder. I think one of the other things we got beyond the doing automation on the vocal was getting it to sound like he's in the room with the other musicians. So let's choose some kind of reverb now on the vocal. I'm not being sponsored by them, but OK Multimedia went into Sunset Sound and measured all the rooms. How lovely of them. I did a video, I don't know if you guys watched this video, but I did a video and I actually took this multi-track and I thought, well, these drums were recorded in Sunset Sound Studio 2. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder what it would be like if I muted all my room mics and fed a balanced drum mix of my close mics into the plugin, which I did. And it really freaked me out because it sounded exactly the same. Like, it sounded like my room mics. And I was really quite confused. And then a month later, I'm back in Sunset Sound tracking a record. I said to the assistant, I was like, hey, did you work on that Sunset Sound studio reverb thing? And he said, yeah, I did that. And I was like, cool. How did you set up the mics? He goes, oh, I just used your setup. So the reason why it sounded the same is because I just used my setup in there. So let's go and grab that so we can put him in the same room as everybody else.
I was blind, didn't know how far I could fall.
We'll bring it down a bit.
If this is love, I want it all. I never thought I would be caught by love so helplessly again.
Now, do you like that? Be honest. Is it reluctant nods, yeah? Is that an overall feeling of reluctant nods? I feel like this song is kind of a soulful track. One of the biggest lessons I learned was doing music for Disney. You're probably thinking, why? Well, we did some stuff for Disney on their cartoons. Now, the thing is I learned about archetypes. let's just say you want to create some tension. You know, something's about to happen. We're exploring, we're getting close to something. What do they use? They use, don't they? Use like a marching drum. Like everyone's like, what's going on? Let's just say you're being stealth and undercover. What's going to happen? What's the music for stealth and undercover? Come on, it's going to be a baritone guitar going dong, 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 dong. Doesn't have to play James Bond, just has the sound of that thing, and we're all going like, he's going like this, dong, 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 dong. But he's getting, it's all. The point is like, there are things that unwittingly, unknowingly, are just like these archetypes that just make us think of certain things. So when I think of this kind of music, soulful music, there's going to be a vocal sound that's quite reminiscent of it, isn't it? There's going to be probably an overuse of reverbs. You know, you think of all of the classic, you know, late 50s, early 60s kind of Motown-y kind of sound. It was swamped in verbs. So, and, you know, so maybe we'll go and listen to what the plate / spring is like.
I was blind, didn't know how far I could fall. If this is love, then I want it all.
To me, that's huge. I feel like, oh, but it makes sense. Even though he's not in the room anymore, it's not the exact same room, it works for the song, yeah? To me, mixing is about making decisions that go far beyond, you know, like EQ and compression. It's creative decisions. The great thing about the lesson for me with the Disney thing was like, you know, realizing, oh, there are certain things that are always going to put you in that place, you know, and sometimes they're more obvious than you can think of. It's nice to work in those kinds of stereotypes because they are a stereotype for a reason.
Hi.
Hi there.
How do you differentiate between making a song sound technically good or great and making a song feel great?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Oh, I love that. One of the things that I like that a lot of good mixers and producers I know, they say find the instrument that drives the song. Very often, it's just knowing a bit more about the process. So if you're working with a singer, songwriter who's an acoustic guitar player or piano player, there's a lot in that. For instance, when I worked with Don Smith years ago as a musician, we came to cut the vocals on the song and we could not get the song to feel good. We're like, when we tracked it, it sounded great. And we brought up a scratch vocal and it sounded great, but the vocals weren't working. What was wrong? And Don just literally took an electric guitar, taped off all the strings, so it just kind of went flop, 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 handed it to the singer and said, sing the song and play it at the same time. And it was literally that the singer was so used to getting into the groove by going, you know, was playing with the actual movement of it. Took the instrument away, it suddenly was all very in time and perfectly in tune, but had zero feel. So the thing I learned from that was obviously tracking vocals. You know, if you've got a singer that's always singing with an instrument, give them the keyboard, even if it's just flop, 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 you know, give them an acoustic guitar, do other things. But it also taught me the lesson of the question, to answer your question, was that's where inherently the song came from. It came from the relation between the vocal and the instrument that the writer played. So it doesn't always work, but it's a great place to start, that your lead singer that you're working with is the acoustic guitar player. Build it from the acoustic guitar. Some of the best songs that I've ever done where we are not in the fortunate position of tracking everybody live are when we start off with the demo of the vocal and acoustic and build from there. So when it came to mix, again, I already have the roadmap. I know that it all came from inherently from that. But in your question, obviously, is going to be somebody just sends you a track to mix. Try to get a few things. Maybe the thing to do is to solo the vocal with some different instruments and see what starts to work. Could be anything. Could be the vocal and the tambourine. Whoa, this is working. Then mix to that. But that's what I'd be searching for. The vocal is the king and the band is the queen. The things need to work together. But you need to figure out, there's the vocal okay, what is working, what feels really good against it, and sort of work backwards from that. But you know, your vocal and then whatever that main instrument that works with it is really your key to that.
I have like one more last question.
Please.
How do you stay so enthusiastic and excited about this whole audio thing?
Me, enthusiastic?
Yeah, because I think that's really one of the great things and lessons that I always learn is that you're so...
Well, the things that I've been criticized over the years for are the things that people like about me. It's always the same thing. I think that is... I'm a workaholic. I work too much and too often. Ask my wife. You know, if I do something, I want to be really, really good at it. You know, people are always, and I'm not trying to blow my own horn, but people are always surprised when I pick up a guitar. Like, whoa! I'm like, yeah, I was a session guitar player, as being an engineer and being a producer. To me, it's just like, if I'm going to do something, I want to be really, really good at it. But it all comes back to one thing and one thing only. When I was a kid, I was just like so many of us, massively insecure, full of massive social anxiety stuff. I had one or two friends. I was very kind of like, all I got, music was the thing that brought me out of my shell. And so it's just being excited about music. When my dad gave me a Night at the Opera for Christmas, I put it on. I was too young for it to be about girls and airplanes and traveling the world. I was just a little kid. All I knew was like, whatever this was, I want to do this. And it wasn't about like being a rock star. It was just, I just need to be involved in this, in the music, you know. So it's easy to be enthusiastic and excited when we get to talk and work in the things that we love. So that was the end of day one at Studioszene 2024. So much fun. We did a masterclass. I mean, basically it was a big discussion about mixing. We went for the less is more, listening to the tracks, making decisions based on the tracks and how things sit together, rather than just applying all the techniques that you learned. It was a lot of fun, great Q&A, and it's been a wonderful Studioszene 2024 day numero 1. Uno, 1.